she had a diamond around her neck. A long time ago, she had told my former sister-in-law that she could have that diamond. It was her wedding diamond from my dad because I had another diamond.
Mm, mm.
Well, when my mom had to go on Medicaid, I cashed in the diamond she gave me
Mhm, mhm.
so that I could pay for one more month worth of senior living, right? And so she knew that. Well, in the
Yeah.
meantime, they had gotten a divorce. And so when I got engaged, she took the diamond off of her neck and she handed it to me. Okay, so that
Mhm.
was given to me. And luckily, I had a witness that this
Yes.
happened. The next day after my mother passed away, I got a phone call from my former sister-in-law. I'd like to come get my diamond, my diamond. What if the best chapter of your life hasn't even begun yet? What lies within you is the power to live brighter, bolder, and truer than ever before. So welcome to Vivatude, where caregiving, connections, and career come into balance and where your vitality, vision, and voice shines through. Because the revolution isn't out there, it's already within you. Welcome to Vivatude.
Welcome back to Vivatude. This is Kate Phillips, and once again, I'm here with Suzanne Newman, also with Answers for Elders, and we're collaborating with the Total Wealth Show as well today. And we're talking about caregiving and managing finances with and for your
Mhm.
elders as a caregiver.
Mhm.
And let's talk more about understanding the power of attorney. What are
Mhm.
some of the different kinds of power of attorney, Suzanne?
Well, Kate, there's actually two major kinds, but I'll kind of break them down. Okay. First
Sure.
of all, there's healthcare power of attorney. Healthcare has to do with what happens if you're in the hospital or in a situation and you cannot speak for yourself. Massive heart attack, stroke, accident, unconscious, anything like that, then you have to have someone that acts on your behalf. Now, how to select that person? Okay. That person is somebody that's cool under stress, that
Mhm.
can deal with people going, out of control. Okay. Mom or dad are very sick and they're not conscious. Okay. Who's going to be the cool customer under? The second thing you look at, most importantly, is who understands your values. Again, it's
Mhm.
all about you. How
Mhm.
often do we sit back? There was a time when I first became a healthcare power of attorney for my mom. I was pushing, Mom, you need to walk more. She was in a wheelchair because she was afraid of falling, right? And she was in her 80s. And I'm going, she had dementia. She didn't want to walk. She could walk if she had to, right?
Mhm.
But she wouldn't. She was too
Oh
fear of
gosh.
falling, right? So what
Oh.
did I do? I was just a real hard-nosed daughter to start, and I would put her in positions where she had to walk
Mhm. Mhm.
until finally a nurse took me aside and said, Suzanne, this isn't about you. It's about her.
Mm.
And I really listened to that and I thought, wow, this is really, really important information. And she's absolutely right. It's the fact that this is my mother's night life. If this is what she chooses, then I
Mm.
need to support what her choices are. So as healthcare power of attorney, part of that is that I learned to lighten up and realize, you know what?
Mhm.
Mom has choices, and I am going to change my approach from being a caregiver, where I'm just basically pushing out to her, to becoming her advocate.
Mhm.
And that shift, that mind shift, realizing what's most important to her. As her healthcare power of attorney, when she had some hospital stays, one of the things that they would do for her, she had a heart attack 3 years before, and
Mhm.
so they informed me this is the thing, and she was so upset they put her on a salt-free diet in the hospital. My mother was 84
Oh.
years old. She
Mhm.
didn't care about that. But, it's mandated by the hospital unless you sign a waiver. And for me, I knew it was important to my mother, right? that she have
Mm.
regular food. So guess who signed the waiver?
You did.
Next
Yeah.
thing that they did was because my mom had a little bit of a swallowing issue, they put her on thickened liquids.
Mm.
Well, guess what? She hated it. She was
Mm.
furious about it. So I had to sign another waiver for that. I also learned if you're healthcare power of attorney, you have the right to have a care conference if they're in a care facility or a senior living organization or a hospital or anything like that. Anytime you want, you have
Mm.
access to these things. You also have a choice as a healthcare power of attorney is what let's say they're releasing them out of rehab or out of the hospital into a rehab center. You don't have to go with the facility that they recommend. Do your research, go view, go tour a few before you do that. Because guess
Yes.
what? This is the thing, check their state surveys. You have a right to ask for those things. And as the power
Mhm.
of attorney of your loved one, you have a right to all of this kind of information. And those things are really important. Now, as far as a financial power of attorney or AIF, attorney in fact, they're both pretty much universally the same. The difference is though, and one of the things is that you're going to have there's different ways in let's say you have the do not resuscitate order. One of those things is if I get to a point where I have to be kept alive by artificial means, do you want to be, does your loved one want that? Okay. These are
Mm.
conversations you need to have with your loved one. Okay. Because guess what? They're not going to be able to speak for themselves. If you
Mhm.
have to be kept alive by artificial means and there's no chance of recovery, maybe you have brain dead or whatever, do you want to be kept, you know, the other thing is, what about hospice? And guess what? When I was my mother's power of attorney, I was put in that position. And my mother was
Mm.
very conscious, but she had dementia. But my mother had COPD. She had had such a bad stroke that she they had her on just like 30 units of oxygen. It was just like she hardly had any capacity to breathe on her own. And so she wasn't getting enough oxygen, so they had it almost dangerously high. I mean, it's crazy
Mm.
how
Mm.
much that she had. And so the nurses took me out and they said the point is we could probably keep her alive for 2 more weeks. No food, she couldn't have any food.
Wow.
She was awake. She was in a situation where she would have to be on oxygen. They did have her intubated for a while. They did take out the ventilator then, but still, the whole point was I sat there and they go, or we can initiate comfort care. And
Mm.
comfort
Mm.
care means we give her morphine and we start dialing back the oxygen gradually. She won't even hardly notice it. She'll fall asleep and she'll pass. And I remember being in that position.
Wow.
And, to this day, Kate, my mom and I never really had that conversation.
Mm. Mm.
I had to make that decision based on my heart. And intellectually, I know I did the right thing. I said, let's do
Mhm.
comfort care. I knew there
Yeah.
was no chance of her recovering. And
Yeah.
I didn't see what kind of power of quality of life my mother would have being hooked up to a machine in a bed that she couldn't even get out of for 2 weeks. It, it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it just didn't feel right to me. And I felt like, I had to make those decisions.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, so that's a healthcare power of attorney. Durable power of attorney, your financial power of attorney is you have the opportunity to, you're going to sign documents. But the other thing that you need to know is how to have access and know where all the assets are. Let's say, for example, mom and dad, become incapacitated and they go into a coma. You have to know like what the investments are. You need to know the bank
Yep.
passwords. You need to know how to get into their bank accounts. You need to understand, where their safety deposit boxes are. What kind of insurance policies do they have? all of these types of documents, these financial documents, you need to have copies of, and to me you need to have know like who their attorney is, who their estate planning attorney is, all of the different types of professionals that they work with, their financial planners, every single thing happens. So having access to these types of bank accounts, I know when my father passed away, I mean, my stepmom said she was stunned because it was just by fluke that she learned that he had four bank accounts and she only knew of one of them.
Oh my goodness.
But he was running all the money and then he passed
Yeah,
away
yeah.
and she just kind of played, naive. She didn't even care, right? Well,
Mhm.
guess what? And then the point was that there was several life insurance policies. He had a AAA life insurance policy, and then he had a JC Penney's one, and he had like a bunch of different life insurance policies that she didn't even know about, and a family trust. So
Wow.
So dad, my father, he was in his 80s and he's doing these things, right? But you don't necessarily understand specifically what you're doing. And therein lies
Absolutely.
the thing is that having those abilities to, to have access to knowing,
Yes.
what these are. Social
And you,
Security is huge. If you can't even get the Social Security because you don't even know the password to get on their account, you have to have a death
mhm.
certificate, and then you have to have an attorney, and then to understand, I'm going to go to the next step is the executor of the estate
Mhm,
because
mhm.
your powers of attorney only are good while your loved one is alive.
Mm, mm.
The
Oh, wow.
minute your loved one passes away, you have no
Mm.
power anymore. Okay.
Wow.
And
So if there's a
then
trust
the
involved,
executor
does
takes
that?
over. Correct.
Okay. The executor. Okay,
Hmm.
okay. Or whoever's
So,
managing could be a trust, or it could just be
hmm,
whatever their
yeah,
assets are.
yeah, yeah. Now, here's what's interesting, Kate. Um, I am of the opinion, this is the opinion of Suzanne, that
Okay.
an executor of an estate should never be one of the heirs.
Interesting.
And I will tell you why.
Hmm.
Because it's the worst position in the world for that person to be in.
Mm,
Because
mm,
everybody wants to know, why didn't I get mine? And why did you get yours? And really, you need to have a neutral party. There's going to be things like, I wanted mom's diamond ring. How come I didn't get it? You gave it to Mary instead of Sally.
mhm.
Okay. Those are the things that happen all of the time in families. I really believe to keep peace in families. And I don't care. People say, oh, my kids get along great. Wait till you die. You don't know. You don't know what the future is. I tell everybody this. Find a neutral party, a family friend, somebody that you trust to be your executor of your estate. And it might be an uncle, or your brother or something like that of yours, or a family member or a nephew or something.
Mhm.
They are not an heir of yours. Therein
Okay.
lies the thing that I always say to people, because again, wrapping up an estate is very, very different. And
Mhm,
from
mhm.
that, though, your job as a financial power of attorney, and I'm going to go back to the financial power of attorney, is to address personal possessions with your loved one. If I'm power of attorney, mom, who do you want to have the diamond ring? Mom,
Yes.
what about the China, pattern, the China in the crystal? What about dad's Model A Ford that's in the garage, the classic car,
Mhm.
all of the different things, the cabin up in Alaska, anything like that. If you have things like that that are in your family, get that information up front. I want this to go to Sally. I want this to go to Mary. And then what you do is you write it down. There are Find like what you talked about, a binder earlier. I that is one of the smartest things you can ever do is list the items that are personal that you want them to go to. And those are the things, it's like my mom's china and her crystal. My mom wanted me to have them, and I was thrilled to have them, right? But
Yes.
but the thing is that I actually had, well, what about the silver? I want, no, I said, well, I'm getting the silver. And then the other thing was that, she had a diamond around her neck. Well, it was a long time ago. She had told my sister-in-law, my former sister-in-law, that she could have that diamond. It was her wedding diamond from my dad because I had another diamond.
Mm, mm,
Well, when my mom had to go on Medicaid, I cashed in the diamond she gave me
mm-hmm.
so that I could pay for one more month worth of senior living, right? And so she knew that. Well, in the
Yeah.
meantime, they had gotten a divorce. And so when I got engaged, she took the diamond off of her neck and she handed it to me. Okay, so that
Mm.
was given to me. And luckily I had a witness that this
Yes,
happened, right?
yes.
But the thing was that if all of those things hadn't happened, okay, the next day after my mother passed away, I got a phone call from my former sister-in-law. I'd like to come get my diamond, my diamond.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
No, it's yeah, no, I think one of the things I'm hearing here is how important communication is, how important
Huge.
having things in writing, how
Hmm.
important it is even for the parent to be communicating these things. My mom has been
Huge.
amazing for this. She's still alive, but she is hopefully for, a while longer for years to come. But she's letting us all know, like, who's
Hmm.
getting what. Also, just want to emphasize the importance of having things organized. And it's not that everybody needs
Hmm.
access to all of these accounts, but you've got to know, how do the bills get paid? And if you
Correct.
don't have the passwords, where do you find them?
Hmm. Hmm.
If you don't, maybe you don't need the document,
Hmm.
but everybody needs to know where to find those things.
Exactly.
We're going to
Exactly.
cover just as soon as we come back from a break, we're going to cover one more topic very important to this, which is about financial abuse. Will be not a fun topic, but an important one. And we'll be right back with Vivatude. Da, 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 the music, and here we go.
Okay.
Welcome back. This is Kate Phillips with Vivatude. We're also here with Suzanne Newman with Answers for Elders, and we are talking about caregiving and managing finances as a caregiver, helping out your parents. And we need to talk about not a super fun topic, but Suzanne, tell us about the reality of financial abuse and what we can do to prevent that.
Oh man. It's probably one of the saddest things in the world what's going on right now. And the internet is full of them, full of online internet scams. Um, I told the story about, encyclopedias.
Mm,
People
hmm.
take advantage of seniors because they know they can.
Yeah.
Another thing is my mom, one of the things I remember when she was still living in her home, this very nice young man came and said he'd like to wash my windows for me. And then he had her pay him up front, and he charged her like $450 to do windows, which I thought was a little high at the time. And we're talking 2006, 2007. So I thought was way too high to do windows, but she didn't even think, and she paid him up front. And then, of course, he never came back. Right. So
Oh.
the thing
Mm,
is that, he says, I'll be back on Friday to do this. This
mm,
happens all the time. So again, having that card and that ability to only have a minimal amount of money when you
mhm,
have a power of attorney, that's for your mom's protection or your dad's protection or whoever you're a power of attorney for. Um, the saddest part, though, is we've talked about is family abuse. Um,
mhm.
I can go on and on and on about situations and scenarios, especially when, there's a lot of need within children. They feel like they can keep grandchildren away from their parents because, they're angry. Um, the inhumane way seniors are treated is heartbreaking. And I've seen so many scenarios of this type of a situation. Um, the other thing is, unfortunately, I've seen almost a situation where families, seniors have been blackmailed by children.
Oh my gosh.
If you don't do this for me, I'm gonna tell Judy what you said about her, or what you did to hurt her.
Mhm.
And understanding that a lot of seniors, they feel vulnerability.
Mhm.
Their world is smaller because they don't understand. They're not tech savvy. They don't know how to check their bank balances. They don't know how to do things. And especially when you're financial power of attorney, a lot of times there's resentment within your family. And so what's going to happen is, in some cases, they're questioning how you're spending your parents' money. You're going to
Yes,
have that person.
sure.
So I'm a big believer again in this separate caregiving account where you give a password to all of your siblings so they can see the money trail.
Mhm.
They're not in your own account. They're in your parents' account. When you transfer money in, when you take money out, it's all documented and what it's for, right?
Yes. And
Then
you can
there's
see how communication, preemptive communication, like
mm-hmm,
letting, like right now, my mom lives in a condo that has huge assessments. Everybody knows about the assessments. We all know that, we're doing things, selling assets
mm-hmm.
even to get these big assessments paid.
Wow, wow. And the thing that's hard, Kate, is that there's so many people out there right now that the adult children, um, it people have no conscience to doing, to taking advantage. And I always talk about warning signs, and I think, we put down, pay attention if your financial power of attorney, if your mom or dad want to make a sudden change out of the blue to their will, make sure
Mm-hmm.
what that is. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Make sure, and remember, you have the power now to nix this. All of a sudden you're giving Joey more money. Why? what
Mm-hmm.
what's what's happened here? Okay. Watch the bank account. I think one
Yes.
of the things that we had with my mom, and it wasn't with a family member, but what it was is she had a caregiver that we got off of Craigslist.
Mm-hmm.
Bad idea.
Mm.
And a side note, never hire anybody to take care of a loved one that is not licensed, bonded, and insured. Don't go there.
Great advice.
I never do that. But here's the thing. All of a sudden, we started seeing these big, withdrawals out of my mother's bank account.
Oh, no.
We started adding them up over like a 2-month, 3-month period, and it was like $9,000.
Oh my gosh.
And I finally realized through the information, I thought, oh my gosh, it's this caregiver. And I said, Mom, what are you doing? She goes, what do you mean? Oh, I gave her my debit card.
Oh,
Mom, don't ever do that.
yes, I know.
Well, she did.
We are very, you've got to talk to your loved ones. We're always telling
Hmm.
my mom about the different bank scams. And now with
Yes.
AI, it's gotten a lot trickier. We're telling her, like,
Hmm.
Mom, even if somebody that sounds like me calls and asks you for money, you've got
Don't
to
go there.
verify, like you have to verify everything.
Hmm.
If your phone rings and it says, Chase Bank and you bank with Chase, it doesn't mean that that person is from
Is from Chase
Chase.
Bank. No,
There
I
are
get calls from Humana all the time, and it's not Humana.
yes. So
But
we're
and
always
that's the
letting my
thing.
mom know, and we've also limited, or she has limited, like, we've got, there's not ever very much money that's in her checking account. So, I mean, there's enough for the bills to get paid, but there's not, her savings is somewhere else
Mm-hmm.
and at a different bank. So there's different ways that you can reduce the risk, and communication is a big one. And there's another way that seniors can get ripped off. They can have people get them to co-sign
Yes. Oh my
for
gosh.
things. And I don't know, other than that's a conversation you need to
Mm-hmm.
have, so they're
Yeah.
not co-signing for cars or houses or
Mm-hmm.
loans for nephews or grandkids or
Exactly.
whatever. And I mean, it doesn't mean that there's not a place and a time to do co-signing, but
Mm-hmm.
you definitely don't want somebody taking advantage in that way.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think the other thing, new friends managing finances.
Oh,
Oh, I met Mary and she does such and such. She's going to help me now. Okay, mom, no.
or yeah, or the person from their alma mater that is
Yes.
going
Oh
to
my
help
gosh.
them make a really big or their favorite charity, and like,
So true.
don't you want to leave a whole
Mm-hmm.
bunch of money for a
Yeah.
scholarship?
Yeah.
And
And
that was what they
anytime there's
told you.
financial pressure,
Hmm.
there's all kinds of people, whether it's to sign for a reverse mortgage or investment in a mine or whatever those things are. It's paying attention to the fact that you have the ability to nix that and to look, or to review what's happening. And like what
Yeah,
you said, Annie, stop, please. What you said was really important in the fact that, making sure that when you recognize this quote unquote girlfriend wasn't a girlfriend,
yeah.
those
Oh,
are things, Kate, that when we look at, how do we do that? Is being clean with your finances, having that independent checking account to me is the best solution for everybody. You can be
mhm.
you can be what's the word I want?
Transparent.
Transparent, that's the word. You can be transparent with that, and you can absolutely make sure that you do that. And I think the final scenario is to sit down and have a powwow with your family on a regular basis.
Yes,
Whether it's a
communicating.
Zoom call, if
Hmm.
everybody's elsewhere, if it's something like that, find out how you can specifically work together, because there may be a situation where daughter has a healthcare power of attorney, but son has financial. Well, then
Yeah, it
guess
could
what?
be.
You guys need to work
Got to
together.
work. Hmm.
And then the other
Absolutely.
thing that I'm just going to say, just excuse me, go away, both of you. Sorry. Sorry,
If
Mikey, just
if
cut
you're
this
on the
out.
podcast, we have a dog who wants to be the star of the show here.
So the thing is it's really important with just with the power of attorney, and when you're working together like this, is to make sure that you're reviewing your document, having those documents reviewed. And that
Great
means
advice.
if mom or dad did an estate plan 5 years ago,
Mhm,
it's probably time to have them looked at again.
mhm.
If it's in a 1 hour of an attorney's time, it's worth your while to do it. And the reason being is that laws change. There's
Mm,
investments change, right?
mhm,
Different
mhm.
types of, insurance policies change, all of those types of things. So have those reviewed at least every 5 years. And I would say at the very end, I mean, ideally they should be reviewed every couple years, but I'm sure you know more about that stuff than I do.
Well, that's great advice. And I want to say, first of all, thank you so much, Suzanne, for coming and sharing your wisdom around this. The things we can do as caregivers to protect both ourselves and our parents financially. And there's an overall message here, and it's really about preparation, that we don't want to wait until the crisis happens, until there's a lawsuit, until there's an accident, until we're
Mm-hmm.
not sure what our loved ones' intentions are for their health, or we don't want to wait for the fraud to
Mm-hmm.
happen. So being proactive is the most important thing that you can do. Getting organized. I mean, we're all busy, especially caregivers are busy, but if you're in that situation and you're listening to this and you see that there's some things that are left undone on the checklist, put it in your calendar right now and for soon, that you're going to set aside some time, whether it's to communicate with the siblings or to get the documents or the bills organized, or whether it's to have a conversation with your loved ones, with your parents about some of these things. Set aside the time to be proactive. An ounce of what's the saying? An ounce of prevention is worth
A
a
pound of
pound of
cure.
cure. That absolutely applies
Yeah.
financially as well. Caregiving is challenging enough, but the preparation will help everything go more smoothly. And also then, eventually that loved one is going to pass. And when you are organized, you're not trying to go through the grieving process while you're looking for documents at the same
Correct.
time, or while you're trying to figure out, how to organize things that could have been organized in advance. So that's the note that we want to leave you on. Once again, this is Kate Phillips with Vivatude and also with the Total Wealth Show. And Suzanne Newman, my special guest, who is the founder of Vivatude, as well as her wonderful business, Answers for Elders. You can find all kinds of content there. Just what it sounds like, Answers for Elders. Please like and subscribe. We'd also love to know your comments or questions. Feel free to leave that on YouTube. We'd love to hear that. And once again, thanks for tuning in to Vivatude.
And thanks for listening to Vivatude. 4 hosts, 1 each week. We help you revivitude your next chapter, because purpose, passion, and prosperity isn't out there. They're already within you. Brighter, bolder, truer. Vivatude.